I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, December the 18th, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Macrocin is proven efficacy at an affordable upfront price, without any BS, end of story. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards, big yearling special here today on Monday. They'll be starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. Got 11,000 on offer. There will be over 100 straight loads of true yearling feeders there. Where are you going to find them this time of year, guys? They got them there. They'll have the regular run of calves also. Got another big sale coming up on Wednesday, a huge cow special. That starts at 4:30 in the afternoon after their weigh-up cow sale that starts in the morning there. But on Wednesday afternoon, they've got 2,000 head coming. Be all kinds of bred cows and pairs. That it will also include at least 350 top quality bred heifers there at Joplin Regional Stockyards on Wednesday afternoon. And then they're going to be shut down, of course, for the holiday break. Their first sale back will be on a Tuesday, January the 2nd, so don't forget that. Huge harvest, and I'm talking about fat cattle harvest. I've been telling you guys that I thought that these packers needed to step up these chain speeds. At some point, they've got to have some product. It's at the time of the year when we have our best demand for product, with people celebrating the holidays and having Christmas parties and all that kind of thing. And yet they just kept trudging along with hardly any kill. But then all of a sudden last week they ramped it up big time. Probably the biggest kill that we've had all year, almost 650,000. It was 649,000 estimated. That is way bigger than what we've been having. You remember here several weeks ago we were just killing barely over 600 there for a few weeks. But that 649,000 be 14,000 bigger than the previous week, 27,000 bigger than the same week a year ago. That makes a difference. And we've been waiting for this. These slow chains have been the main reason for the confusing cattle on feed numbers that are coming out, if you believe in those. But because it's just backed these cattle up, we're used to them going on and flushing out through the system. It's definitely the reason why our carcass weights have shot up to all-time record highs, and given anybody that wanted to be bearish in this market a reason to be bearish. But man, our board has been really good to us here the last couple of weeks. It was up big last week, especially your feeder cattle board. Every month out front in your live cattle futures are at a premium to what is trading right now on your spot. And that is a good place to be because it gives us something to look forward to out front. And like I said, most of the time as we get to it, it evaporates and goes away. But it's still good to have it higher out front. And of course your January feeder cattle, every single traded month of feeder cattle futures is progressively at a premium to what your spot January feeder cattle contract is. That's something good too. Once it gets out there and they're getting high enough whenever you guys are thinking about selling your calves or yearlings, you want to be paying attention to that. You can see how vulnerable you are, that they can pull that thing out from under you in 2 weeks. You've lost all this ground. So whenever it starts getting up there, you know, maybe you want to lay some of that off. Maybe you want to get you an LRP out front there. Do something to try to preserve some of that market, because we know how fast they can take it away. We know that we've got a lot of bearish news in front of us, but still we're very vulnerable for them to take that away, and it doesn't take hardly anything to do that. But you know, your feeder cattle are still about $30 back. As far as your feeder cattle futures, they're about $30 back or where we were 6 weeks ago. That's how much ground we lost. And on your feeder cat or your fat cattle, they're about $15 on your live cattle futures under where we were 6 weeks ago. So I agree, we have some room to gain up and get back here. But you know, anytime it starts looking pretty good to you out there, you want to consider managing your risk. Went out to the National Finals Rodeo for the last 3 or 4 days, and that's always a lot of fun to go out there. I enjoy it very much. That's your unofficial cattlemen's convention. See more people out there that are involved in the cattle business. You know, I saw feeder flash gang members, you know, everywhere I went. Anytime we got on a bus to go to the rodeo or come back or went into a casino or wherever, saw a lot of them and enjoyed visiting with them. You know, saw Jackie Moore and his family. They were out there enjoying the rodeo, and you just see people like that. And not only was it just cattle people out there, but it's just wholesome people, God-fearing type people, beef lovers. And that's one reason that it made me scratch my head so much, that our beef checkoff wanted to waste money advertising during the rodeo for beef. There's got to be better places you can spend that money than spending it preaching to the choir. And that is so frustrating whenever they waste that money like that. You know, put it on Times Square or somewhere where people don't feel the same way we do or think the same way we do. But also out there at the National Finals Rodeo, I saw the biggest collection of grown-ass men wearing cowboy hats and house shoes. And I mentioned that several years ago, or a few years ago there. It's just unbelievable to me how everywhere you go out there, they're selling high-dollar fancy boots, and everybody's wearing house shoes. And I realize that, you know, a lot of people aren't used to walking on the concrete that much, and I'm not either. But, you know, my goodness, I did not wear house shoes while I was out there. I wore the best boots that I had, and they weren't broke in. So yeah, my feet and ankles and knees hurt, but I've still got a little bit of pride left. But my goodness, I tell you what, it'd make Casey Tibbs roll over in his grave if he saw all those people out there wearing cowboy hats and slipping around in house shoes that don't even have any shoestrings in them. I've got to mention the passing of my friend Brian Little. He's from Juan, Oklahoma, but owned the sale barn in Coffeyville, Kansas, there for many years, and just a great guy. One of the best auctioneers that we've had, you know, in history. He was just a good guy, and I didn't know him my whole life. I've probably known him for the last 5 years, but every time I try to think back, did I know Brian then? From the first day that I met him, we were friends. And that's the way he was. He was just a great guy, and he was very engaging. He was supportive of everybody. He always had good stories to tell. And I think the reason that it hit home for me, maybe more so than anything else, is we were about the same age. He was just starting to get grandkids, and he just loved them so much. Loved his family, loved his wife, and wasn't embarrassed to tell people that he did. And I loved listening to him tell stories. I could sit and listen to him tell stories all the time. He loved to get, I got to share one with you. He loved to get in the auctioneer contests, and the World Livestock Auctioneer Contest, and one in Canada, and a lot of them. And at one time they were telling me, or he was telling the story that he was getting ready to be his turn. So he was back behind the block and waiting his turn, and he was talking to the guy that was going right ahead of him, and he had never met him before. He was from a different part of the country, and he hadn't had a chance to meet him. So he met him, and they had a chance to visit there for a little bit, and then he walked in, and it was his turn to sell. And then I think he turned back to Jay Romine, probably. Jay Romine was his best friend, and they were inseparable, and I feel so sorry for Jay because I know he's having a hard time with this. But Brian said, boy, did you ever meet that guy before? And Jay says, no, I never met him before. He said, boy, he's a really nice guy. I like him real well. And he said, yeah, he seemed like a real nice guy. And then then the guy got behind the mic and he started selling. And as soon as he started selling, Brian rolls his eyes and he says, well, son of a, there's another MFer that I can't beat. And that's just the kind of guy he was. He was such a great guy. He was very humble. And I just hate it. You know, he had cancer for several years, and I'd see him several times a year, and every time I'd see him, it'd just eat him up just a little bit more. That's such a horrible disease. But prayers and thoughts out to his family and friends there in southeast Kansas and northeast Oklahoma. Talk about the Lynn's Heritage Angus Bull Sale is going to be in Byers, Oklahoma. Now that's central Oklahoma, just south of Oklahoma City. That bull sale, I mean, this is a prestigious deal. It's going to be on January the 18th. They're going to be selling 150 yearling and 18-month-old bulls. The delivery is free within a 500-mile radius around there. They've got real good guarantees for the first breeding season there. And the calves, this is the kicker, your calves out of that bull that you buy are eligible for a buyback program with some nice premiums there. So keep tuning in here and listening to us talk about Lynn's Heritage Angus Sale. It's going to be on January the 18th here in about a month. Let's talk about your board December live cattle futures. This is all for last week. Monday was up $1.52, Tuesday was up 72, Wednesday was down 75, Thursday was up 55, and Friday up 72. Pretty darn good board there. With December live cattle contracts ending the week at 168.22. That was up 277 for the week. February ended the week at 169.35, and that was up 363 for the week. Your feeder cattle January contract Monday was up 265. Tuesday was up $1.30. Wednesday was down $1.87 for no apparent reason. It just goes up and down. Thursday was up 197 and Friday up 155. Huge gains for January feeder cattle contracts, up 560 for the week at 220.90. March was up 610 for the week at 222.17. March corn ended the week at 483 a bushel. That was down 2.5 cents. Your January beans ended the week at 13.15 3/4. That was up 11 3/4 cents. And March Kansas City hard red winter wheat ended the week at 6.42 3/4 cents a bushel, down 13 for the week. Your fat cattle trade, if you remember, I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm just saying, if you remember, I was talking about they ran out of pushovers late in the week last week. Couldn't find any more people to puke them fat cattle. That was kind of right, but they did end up getting 170 in the Southern Plains. And even though that was still about $1 lower on the average than the previous week, it's still kind of a victory, because the Midwest and Northern Plains, they were selling them cattle all along, not big numbers, but here and there selling them cattle from 165 to 168. For what reason, I have no idea. Dress bids, they were taking them from 267 to 268, maybe some 270, but the Southern Plains wasn't going to do it. And by mid to late week, they were actually buying cattle and taking delivery of them, immediately in Nebraska and places, and then hauling them all the way to Kansas to have them slaughtered. Now, in my mind, that's an unfair trade practice. Whenever they would rather, pay $6, $8 a hundred freight to get those cattle down to a southern packing plant, rather than give them a couple dollars more market. That's dirty pool there. I don't agree with that at all. But that's what they do, people. But through Thursday, they had sold just 17,600 head. Your live sales were 165 to 168, which was $1 to $3 lower. Weighted average on live steers through Thursday was 167.71. That's over $2 lower. Your dress trade was from 264 to 270 on that light trade, $1 to $2 lower. Weighted average on dress steers 267.60, about $2 lower. But then Friday is when we saw trade, and we don't know how much because they didn't start trading until in the afternoon, and so we don't get that information until Monday morning here later. But Iowa sold 3,500 on Friday, only 10,000 for the week. 165 to 168, 267 dress. Nebraska about 300 head, only 11,300 for the week, 268 dressed. Kansas had just started trading at 2 o'clock whenever they had to turn that information in, and they were selling cattle from 168 to mostly all 170. And then after that, the gate swung and we saw a lot of cattle trade at 170. Like I said, that's still lower, but kind of a victory there. A little bit of dress trade in Kansas at 268. Texas did have 300 head sell on Thursday, and that's all the cattle they'd sold all week at 170. Not sure how big of a movement we had late on Friday at the 170, and I'm not sure if we got any 170 in the Nebraska and Iowa feedlot areas. But like I said, a mild victory there in a down market. Talk about your box beef cutout values. Your weighted average for all of last week's choice cut trade was up 33 cents on the choice, with a weighted average price of $291.76. Your late sales on Friday afternoon were about the same as your weighted average. All of last week's sales in select had a weighted average of $259.30. That was down 42 cents. But your late Friday sales on select cuts were about $1.50 higher than that weighted average. Your choice select spread on the weighted average, the bulk of the trade, was about $32.50, and pretty decent spot movement of 743 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, I mentioned early, huge, 649,000, 14,000 more than the previous week, 27,000 more than the same week a year ago. They had Saturday slaughter at 23,000, which is a lot bigger than what we've been seeing, but there's still a lot more room for that to grow. And I have heard that there's more packers that are planning to have a Saturday kill than what we had this past Saturday. So we may really, grow this slaughter big time, gangbusters. Talk about what else is going on. Ever.ag. EverAg Risk Management specializes in cattle and grain brokerage, insurance services, advisory services to buyers and sellers of grain products, and vault software technology. Navigate risk management with Ever.ag. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction ended the week at 220.30. That was a big gainer for the week. Your CME cash feeder cattle index ended the week at 219.07. Talk about your sales. They started out, your early week sales last week, like on Monday, were $1 to $3 higher. And a lot of that on your yearling feeders, and I've been telling you, they've been selling better than the calves have been. Well, there's just more calves around, but when you see true yearling feeders, they sell really well. But later in the week, from midweek on, your trends in your sale barns were $4 to $8 higher. Like I said, your weighted average, your real-time index was about $5 higher for the week. But we had some booming sales. Beaver, Oklahoma had a smoking sale last Tuesday and sold cattle sharply higher. El Reno sold cattle really, really well on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Ogallala had a special sale on Thursday, and it was sharply higher across the board. Your markets are going to start out the week here very well. Your high volume sales here today, like Oklahoma City and Joplin and those, they're going to be higher. Don't know how much higher, but it's going to be an active market, and we've got some confidence back. Talk about some sales late last week. They had a special at Nevada Livestock Marketing in Fallon, Nevada. I was not there for that special, but they got along just fine without me. And they had a lot of steer calves weighing either side of 600 pounds. And I wanted to pull up the groups of them and kind of show you what they're bringing. This is the most they'll bring anywhere in the United States, guys, or as much as what they'll bring. At Fallon, Nevada there, they've got demand from California grazers. They were expecting a lot of rain out there this week. And not sure if they ended up realizing that or not, but they were expecting a lot of it. But they got cattle weighing just on either side of 600 pounds, bringing from 260 to 270 at Nevada Livestock Marketing. Now that is a spot that can have a big difference. You can have a pretty good sale somewhere and have 600-pound steers and good ones only bringing 225 or 230, and then you can have them selling at a premium at some other sales like 260 and 70. So you kind of got to watch what you're doing there. How about some individual quotes? Santa Teresa livestock auction at Santa Teresa, New Mexico. These are Mexican cattle that have been across the border and sold at that sale barn there just right next to the pens. But they sold 138 little flyweight steers, weighed 301 at 307. So look at that, that's less than $1,000, guys, if you're looking on keeping your price per head down. How about Wahoo livestock sales in Wahoo, Nebraska? They had 2 loads of 855-pound yearling feeder steers there. They bring 226.50. Thought that was pretty good. But the best quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, and your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Verdigris stockyards in Verdigris, Nebraska. They sell 97 steer calves, weighed 588, almost 600 pounds. They bring 286.75. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.